Hi, my name is Ms. Sujata, and today I am your English teacher. So, we are going to start with the first concept, that is understanding the basics of spoken English. Before we start with our first chapter, let us understand the introduction part for understanding the basics of spoken English. So, let us first understand the introduction. So, it says, you have an opportunity for a better paying job, but you need to improve your English before you can apply. Or you want to enroll in a university in the United States, but your English is not good enough yet. You have already taken English classes for 2 years in secondary school. Maybe you have studied more English at the university. You know English grammar and can write, but you need to learn how to speak English. And you need to improve your spoken English very quickly. This book will tell you how to retrain your mind and your tongue in order to learn fluent spoken English. With the information from this book, you can learn to speak English in half of the time it normally takes. Throughout this book, I will emphasize spoken English. So we will start with the first chapter, that is called as Teaching Your Tongue to Speak English, which explains the concept on which this spoken English learned quickly method is built. The remaining chapters tell you how to apply that information as you learn to speak English fluently. I wish you the best of success as you study spoken English. So, this is the introduction for the basics of understanding spoken English. And now we will start with the first chapter, that is teaching your tongue to speak English. Now, this is a very important lesson to start with spoken English on how to use our tongue to speak English. Basically, we are all very much familiar with our mother tongue, speaking our native language. Yeah. And now we have to make our tongue habituate in speaking English. Normally, when students first try to speak English, they do make a lot of mistakes, grammatical mistakes, as well as pronunciation. So, here we will understand how to control the speech, the tongue, the pronunciation, and how to utilize our sentence making productivity in understanding how to speak smoothly. So, the chapter summary, as it says, is speech is controlled in our mind by feedback from your hearing and mouth position as much as it is from your memory. So, what it is trying to say is this, that what goes in your mind or in your memory, that has to be said in a proper emphasized way. Yeah. So, if you want to speak fluent English, it is just as important to retrain your tongue as it is to train your memory. So, it should be in a sync. Okay. To be effective, however, you must retrain your mind, tongue, and hearing at exactly the same time because they must work together when you speak English. Why have you studied English so long in school without learning to speak fluently? It is because your teachers have tried to train your mind with written exercises without retraining your tongue at the same time. So sometimes you must have seen that with young students, they do oral test, yeah, or they do essay competition, okay, essay saying, okay, or like allocation, okay. So these kind of competitions, these kind of tests do helps students to speak English fluently. They practice their tongue to speak English, and that is very important. Yeah. So, what they are trying to say in this chapter is this, that sometimes we students don't know to speak English, but we do know to write English. Why? Because in school, mostly English has been down in writing, but not in saying. So we have to retrain our tongue while we are writing at the same time. If you want to learn to speak English fluently, it will help you to understand how the human mind produces speech. So that is very important. However, before looking at the mechanics of speech, I want to draw an analogy from machine control because the analogy closely parallels neurological responses in spoken language. Okay, so now here is um example given, okay, an example given, okay, about the mechanics of speech, okay. Yeah, so that is to draw an analogy from control. Okay, so what it is, that is open loop machine control. Okay, so what the Wikipedia says about loop control system. So look closely over here. It says an open loop controller, also called a non-feedback controller, is a type of controller which computes its input into a system using only the current state of the system. A characteristics of the open controller is that it does not use feedback to determine if its input has achieved the desired goal. This means that the system does not observe the output of the processes that it is controlling. Consequently, a true open loop system cannot correct an errors that it could make. Okay. So let's see the example. So a sprinkler system programmed to turn on at set times could be an example of an open loop system. If it does not measure soil moisture as a form of feedback. Even if rain is pouring down on the lawn, the sprinkler system would activate on schedule, wasting water. Okay, so as it says in the example, we can understand what it is trying to say. Okay, so what it says about open loop machine control is this, that it does its work, but it does not understand that if it is making some kind of mistakes or it should have not done the work. Okay, yes. So as it says in the example, a sprinkler system, when it is programmed on a set time to do its work, and what is the work of a sprinkler system? that is to um, pour down the lane, okay, but it does not measure the soil moisture, okay. If it would have measured the soil moisture, then it would have understood that the rain is pouring down, so it should not be sprinkling the water. But since it does not measure, so what it does is it sets for the schedule pouring down water, and it does despite it is raining. So what it happens is eventually the water is wasted. Okay, yeah. So here we can see the diagram of open loop control. Here it shows the open loop control. Okay, yeah. So you can see the control over here. Okay, the control may be a simple switch, or it could be a combination of a switch and a timer. Okay, yet all it can do is turn the machine on. It cannot respond to do anything the machine is doing. Okay. Yes. Now, the next one we are going to understand is the closed loop machine control. So, what it says is to avoid the problems of the open loop controller, control theory introduces feedback. Okay, a closed loop controller uses feedback to control states or outputs of a dynamical system. Its name comes from the information path in the system, process inputs. Okay, and the example given over here is voltage applied to a motor. Okay, so here the example is the velocity of the motor, which is measured by sensors and processed by the controller. The result is the control signal is used as input to the process closing the loop. Okay. Yes. So here, the Wikipedia's definition of a closed loop system subsequently becomes too technical to use here. Okay. So it gives us again the sprinkler example. So what it says is a sprinkler incorporating a soil moisture sensor would have been a simple closed loop system. The sprinkler system would have both a timer and a control valve. Either could operate independently or either could shut the water off. But both would need to be open in order for the sprinkler to operate. Okay, so you can see over here as it says that in a sprinkler, okay, so here you can see with the arrow in the diagram, this is the sprinkler, this is the water pipe, here is the valve, okay, and a timer. So timer, what it does is it sets the time, okay, regularly when it should be sprinkling the water, okay, and there is a water pipe, okay, and you can see that here is a soil moisture probe, okay, so that it measures the soil moisture, okay, and if the soil moisture is enough for the soil where it says that the moisture is there, so automatically it will shut down the valve. So what it happens is this, despite there is a timer given, the valve, when it shuts down, it automatically shuts the water output through the pipe and then eventually to the sprinkler. Okay, so that is when the water is not wasted. Okay, yes, so it helps to balance out the moisture in the soil, okay, because we don't need excess moisture in the soil, okay, and when the moisture of the soil subsequently goes down, the valve again opens up, okay, And then when the timer schedule is there, okay, according to the time, the water will again go through the pipe and sprinkler will do its work. Okay, so that is a closed loop sprinkler system. Okay, so here we will see the figure 3, a closed loop machine control. Okay, so what it shows over here, it shows a calibration function, okay, irrespective of whether it is a soil moisture sensor on a sprinkler or a counter on a machine. There must be some way of setting the control so that it will respond in a predetermined way. In a machine application, the calibration function could be a counter which is set so that the machine will produce a certain number of finished parts. Okay, yes. So what it happens in machine learning, that when there are sets of parts given to its respective work. Okay, here the best example given for a closed loop sprinkler is this, that each machine was given its part, okay, and it did a number of work irrespective of the last work it has to be solved. Okay, so each part was given its set work and it completed the work without any wastage. Okay, yes. So here we will see the human speech in a closed loop system. Okay, so the human speech is a complex learned skill and is dependent on a number of memory and neurological functions. Okay, so like the machines which has various parts and each part has its own work to do, here also the human speech is also been determined in that kind of example. Okay, so what it says is it's a complex learned skill and it's dependent upon number of memory and neurological functions. Okay, speech is a closed loop system. Okay, as we have seen in a closed loop system, okay, here the speech is also compared to a closed loop system because the sensors within the system itself give feedback to the control portion of the system. Now, here we have to understand which part is doing which work. Okay, yes. So, for that, what it says is the sensor within the system. Now, we do have that in our system, there is a sensor which gives itself a feedback to the control portion of the system. Okay, the control then corrects and coordinates ongoing speech. In this case, the mind is in control of the closed loop system. The mouth produces the desired product, that is the speech, and auditory feedback from the ears and feedback from the nerve cells in the mouth allows the mind to coordinate the speech process in real life. Okay, so as we are able to understand, there are many parts of our human speech that is involved in this human speech. Okay, and human speech is a closed loop system. Okay, so here one by one we have to understand which role is played by which part. Okay, yes. So when you speak your own language, your mind stores all of the vocabulary you need. Okay, actually, what it do happens is this: when we do speak our own language, okay, that is our native language, what happens is this: since we are very much familiar, okay, we are speaking that language when we are kids, okay, our mother, father teach us our native language. What happens is lots of the words, lots of sentence making happens at that time. We learn at that time. So that is all feed. Okay, that is all been done in the memory itself. Okay, so it stores, our mind stores the vocabulary that we need. Okay, yeah. So what happens is this: then our mind controls our tongue, okay, our mouth, and our breathing. Okay, the memory stores the vocabulary, and what our mind do is it controls our tongue, our mouth, and our breathing. Your hearing also plays an important part of the control, because your ears hears everything what you speak. Okay, so therefore what you say next is partially dependent on the vocabulary and other information stored in your mind. But what you say next is also dependent on what you hear from your ears, okay, from your mouth, and the feedback that is coming from the nerves in your tongue and mouth. Okay, so that's it for today. Okay, I think I have done a lot of part of this chapter. Okay, so this is just a first part of this chapter. The rest of the part I'm going to do in the next video. Thank you for today. Bye.